Alright, so this is blog entry, who knows what, dated October 20-something. I'm not even sure what day, time it is anymore. But it's been a while since I've done a video blog, so I bring you this blog entitled The Perfect Man. Okay, so the obvious thing is that this man doesn't exist. Regardless of what many of us men think about ourselves, we all fall short of perfection. Just ask any woman I've had the privilege of getting to know on the level of more than just acquaintance or otherwise, and you'll find yourself with tons of examples of how I've fallen short. The reality is, I don't believe we are called to be perfect, but rather to fulfill a purpose and live in a way that God's designed us men to live. So living here in the beautiful country of Colombia and being in observation mode 24/7, I've noticed quite a few similarities between the culture here and given my background a somewhat traditional Asian cultural mindset. You may be wondering what I'm talking about after seeing all my photos of kids and grandparents salsa dancing, the days out in God's creation, celebrating with youth, and the stories of how typically non-conservative the women dress here. What I'm referring to is the family structure between relatives and members within the household. There is one main difference. Where here, it is a matriarchal structure where the abuela, the grandmother, or the mother is the patrona, the big boss of the family. As where, many of you may know, it is typically the big father that has or is the final word in the Asian culture. Nonetheless, the emphasis on the family unit is very much the same. Parents drive their children to focus on their studies in hopes that they will have a better opportunity for their futures, and do their best to cover all costs and needs for their children all through to the end of their university degrees, and for some, even beyond that. You'll find a number of children who don't move out of their parents' home till well into their late 20s or even 30s. Usually marriage will be the only reason a child moves away from their parents. But as we know, that's not always the case, and for various reasons, newlyweds will find themselves living with their parents or in-laws. As much as I love the focus and the heart behind the family unit in my own culture, as well as the Colombian culture, and how one member is always caring and looking out for another, my question is it always for the best? It sounds contradictory, doesn't it? The love of a family who only wants what's best for one another can have a negative side effect. This may rub you the wrong way. But as difficult as it may be for some families, I truly believe that not letting go and encouraging children who are old enough to support and make a life for themselves, it is a crucial process in order for us to learn to live as adults in a manner that we were created. I love my parents and all, but really, the last thing that I'd want on earth is to come home with my new bride after our wedding to my parents or even her parents' home. We may have to rent or not have a place nearly as nice to call our own. But in the same manner, I believe there is so much value in getting out of your comfort zone, to struggle, but more so to learn and to grow as an individual. So what does this all have to do with the perfect man? I look at myself, and it's glaringly obvious that there are many areas where I fall short and much work is needed. But I thank my parents. I thank them for struggling to force me to grow up, no matter how much the tradition that runs through their blood made them want to baby me. As I work here, sorry, I'm sick, to help build up young adult leaders, just as I have come to realize many of my own faults through this process, it has also helped me observe and learn about side effects in different areas where our culture and tradition takes precedence over God's culture. Here is where it ties together. Here is where it ties together. I believe God has created men and women with equal value. No one gender is more valuable or more important in the eyes of the Lord than the other. But I do believe that He designed us very differently. Different in the ways we are wired to respond, ways we're driven to care and feel. As men, I truly believe He designed us with a need to conquer, to fight for something we're dying for, to live life with this type of passion. In the same way, I believe He's created women to respond to a man who lives in such a manner. One thing I've learned having what some would say many female friends is that beyond the broad shoulders, the strong back, sculpted chest, and yes, even those defined lines of a man's abdominals that dip below his pant line, almost all women will respond with one common answer when faced with the question what they find attractive in a man. A man that does live with purpose, passion, and in a manner for which he believes is worth dying for. This comfortable, adolescent stage that many young people are enjoying due to the graciousness or even the taking advantage of their parents' love has changed the way men have sought to fulfill this need to conquer and to fight. This is where I may step on a few toes. But I am doing so not to offend, but to pose the question to ourselves if there are areas where we can reflect and possibly adjust so that we can experience life in the way that God desires. To all the women out there, are you tired of waiting for your man to step up and propose? Guys, do you find yourself spending countless hours in front of the TV, watching sports, playing video games, or in front of a mirror addicted to perfecting your body? How about us men who seek to sleep around and see how many women we can string along on the weekends, or even hide ourselves and consume pornography in secret? I am not saying things like games or sports are bad, but in excess, as many of us are guilty of, men, is this really the way God designed us to live? And more so, feel fulfilled? I'll tell you straight up that living here and witnessing the women who have had to learn to be okay with socializing with their husbands' mistresses, cook and clean from dusk till dawn while caring for their children with little to no help from their husband or the father of their children who may not even be around, they will be hard-pressed to be convinced that this is the way God has designed men to live. These are all symptoms of men trying to find other means of fulfilling God's given need to conquer, our God-given need to fight and live passionately in a way that we were designed. Being babied and comfortable, we've become weak, and in turn seek to take the easier, but sadly, the unfulfilling route. I'm not ranting on like this to hash out all of us men, but to use ourselves, our problems, as an example. Because all of us men and women can benefit from reflecting and analyzing where we are falling short. We can't change how our cultural traditions or childhood may have negatively affected us. In fact, I encourage, embrace the amazing love and care that your parents have blessed you with, and their fight to do the best they know how in raising you. But understand, God, our Father in heaven, wants and offers us all a future that is second to none. This is not about one culture being better than another. Just living here, I've witnessed there are so many beautiful things in all of our diverse cultures. But rather, it is a question of things that aren't in line with letting us experience the life He wants for us. Things that aren't in line with his culture. This is all a process. Just like my parents struggled to let go of tradition and culture in exchange for God's best, they gave it their best shot and they tried. We too, the reality is, we too will fail and struggle. But the beauty is that we are not called to perfection. Christ has paid the price for us so that we may have our chance to give it our best shot. Take it from the not so perfect young single man, if you may. I have made a ton of mistakes, learning and living life thus far. But every single time, I have gotten out of my comfort zone in order to grow and experience life in a way I believe God wants for me. He desires for me. He has not once, ever let me down or left me disappointed. And I promise you, He can and He will do the same for you.